Welcome to Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast.
And welcome back to Boring Conversation, everybody. It's been a little bit longer than I would have liked to since the last time we recorded. I'd actually been trying to line up a recording session with some overseas guests to talk about a tournament that they recently had, so we could hear a little bit of something about the meta that they play in and how their games may differ somewhat from what we see typically in the U.S. We had some scheduling difficulties. Come to find out, having plus 6 or 7 hours time difference and 5 people's schedules to coordinate have made that a little more challenging, but we do have a date nailed down, so you can look forward to that in August. As far as today, I am joined by Maeve from the Bayou Breakdown and Boring Conversation.
Hello.
So in today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about a game that Maeve and I played actually just last night. We played a game on Vassal using the new Gaining Grounds 3 tournament pack. We picked out a new strategy and a mix of new and old schemes. And incidentally, we actually streamed the game, which I have never tried doing. So I got about an hour and a half long crash course yesterday in how to stream, how to post to YouTube, and everything seemed to go okay. I could hear both of our audios, and I think that some folks went back and watched it afterwards. So if you want to check out our YouTube channel, which is linked in the show notes, and then you can also just search for Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast on YouTube. Subscribe and like the video, comment if you please. You can check out the game as well. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we start the new episode. First things first, we are recording a little bit earlier than usual, so my kids and my dogs are not asleep yet. So there might be a little background noise. I apologize in advance, and I will do my best to edit as much out as I can. Also, Maeve and I were playing until pretty late last night. I think I ended up going to bed at about, 12:30, probably fell asleep at 1 o'clock. And then I woke up promptly at 6:30 so that I could brew a batch of beer, and was busy with that until about noon. So I'm running on fumes here. I also slightly overcommitted and ended up doing a dinner that took about 2 hours to put together. And yeah, because I'm a lunatic. So if I start to ramble, that would be why. Also, I can also share some other little bit of background noise that you guys might hear. Today was the first day that my family brought home a potential new furry friend. We have a dog that we are probably going to be rescuing from a shelter, and if you hear a bunch of running around barking, well, that's my 2 dogs playing. So I'll post some pictures of them too, so y'all can enjoy them. But without any further ado, Maeve, are you drinking anything tonight?
Not tonight, because I got to go to work here at 11, so a couple hours. So not drinking tonight, but I tell you, I have been enjoying most of the new summer flavors from Sam Adams. They've got some pretty good. I was surprised. I didn't think I'd like them, but the tropical, it's like tropical something. I can't remember exactly what it is really good. So
yeah. I mean, they've been putting out some pretty good stuff these days. I was never really a huge fan of the Sam's summer ale. It always had kind of like a slightly soapy sort of cilantro-y taste to me. But I know a lot of people really love it, and they've been doing a great job at putting out kind of new stuff as the years go around. I think the one that you're talking about is like a tropical hop, a tropical IPA where the hops are contributing a bunch of like passion fruit, and guava, and mango, and pineapple flavors to them.
And it's very hoppy, which is, I love hoppy beers, so that's fine.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually kind of what I brewed this morning. I did a session IPA, which is like a hazy. Session IPA is a low gravity or low alcohol IPA with a bunch of kind of tropical fruit and fruit forward hops. I'm hoping that that's going to be ready for my club's summer picnic. But as far as what I'm drinking tonight, I have what I consider to be probably one of the best beers in the world, at least to my taste. And that is Orval Trappist Ale from excuse me, Trappist monastery in Belgium. It's a beer that, I mean, you guys can't see it. I'll hold it up for Maeve. It's got a nice thick sudsy head, and I've had that in the glass for probably about 10 minutes at this point, and
That's
it
awesome.
hasn't dropped out. Great complex flavors. Every bottle seems to be a little bit different. If you can pick up any Orval, I would highly recommend it. So with that out of the way, before we get into the content, there's actually a couple of announcements that we were going to share. Firstly, I believe Maeve is planning on attending the Nova Open. Is that correct?
I am. Right now, I'm signed up for the GT. I don't think I'm going to make the Invitational just because we have not had enough events in North Carolina, and a couple other ones we did have, like, school has just been, more of a priority. Surprising, I know, paying, money for school is, higher priority than games, but such as it is.
It's a good incentive to actually, do your work.
Yeah.
Which is never something that I excelled at.
I'm going to be, if I don't play in the Invitational, I'll probably be doing some RPGs with Craig, listening to he's got a couple of panels that he's running, so I'll probably just be hanging out with Craig and Nathan and watching what Malifaux I can and hoping I can at least get like mid-tables in the GT.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a great turnout. I was really, really, really hoping that I could go. Unfortunately, I did just start a new job, and I simply don't have enough paid time off this year. So, couldn't make it, which is a real bummer. But in good news, I have actually confirmed that I'm going to be running the Malifaux events at ArmorCon in, I believe, Framingham. I think it's Framingham, Massachusetts this year. That's going to be the weekend just after Columbus Day. So I believe the events run the 14th through the 16th. I intend to run a Henchman Hardcore and a Bonanza Brawl on Friday. I actually just ordered the Bonanza Brawl deck from Wargame Vault, so I'm pretty excited to get that in. I haven't tried out that format yet, but I love Enforcer Brawls, or All-Out Brawls as they're called now, and this one just seems like it's an even better kind of great time for a great table of players.
It looks so much fun.
Yeah.
And I know that they've put a lot of work into it. So
yeah, definitely. I was really excited to reach out to Doug and the other scoundrels to talk a little bit about it today in terms of duration of the event, time commitments, and that kind of thing. And they're excited that I'm going to be running it at the event as well. So that'll be great. Those will be Friday. And then, of course, we're going to do a 2-day 5-round Gaining Grounds tournament using the new GG3 packet. That's going to be going Saturday and Sunday. The event schedule is going to be posted up probably this weekend or next weekend, and they'll have the room block available. It may be even available now. But yeah, and we have a really great setup of tables, especially after all the work that my local folks put into helping me organize Captain Con. We're going to have all the terrain and maps that we had available for that. Plus whatever the folks over at Battleground Saugus and the Danger Planet YouTube channel can bring. And the convention is providing terrain as well. So we should have no shortage of great tables. So I'll make sure I include a link to the ArmorCon's website in the show notes.
Yeah, too bad that's going to be a bit too much of a trip for me, especially with airlines being the freaking disaster they are right now.
Yeah, tell me about it. I just had a work trip a couple of weeks back, and my flight out of Fort Lauderdale got canceled. They rerouted me to the Miami airport, and I ended up getting home at something like 1 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's
well, Charlotte and Raleigh Durham are like in the top 10 worst situations right now. So
yeah, and
those would be the two that I fly out of. So yeah.
Yeah,
no
my flight from Fort Lauderdale had a layover in Charlotte, which got canceled. So yeah, hence my rerouted flight. At any rate, so as I said before, we actually streamed this particular game. That's the first time that we've done that, and we also did something else a little bit different this time, and it's something that we got a lot of great responses to. So I think I'm going to make a habit of trying to include this in as many episodes as it makes sense to do so. And that is a survey. So we did a pre-recording survey that had a number of questions on it. We're going to go through some of the results of what the community thought on the questions and how they compare to the way the game actually played out. So just to go quickly over the top line questions themselves without getting into the answers. The first question was, who will emerge the victor? Myself with, spoiler alert, Zipp, or Maeve with Ulix? The second question was, which schemes will Jesse choose? Third was, which schemes will Maeve choose? Last one was, what will the final point differential be? Or next one, rather. Then, which title will Jesse choose? Which title will Maeve choose? So we had a total of 6 questions. We'll go through the community's input before we get to that particular point in the podcast. So, first and foremost, I guess we should probably go over the pool. So, yeah. Maeve, you put it together. Do you happen to have it in front of you that maybe you could read it off?
I do. It was a flank deployment. We're playing the new cursed objects, set the trap, spread them out, hidden martyrs, breakthrough, and in your face.
Cool. So we had a nice mix of old and new schemes. So new stuff, of course, being the strategy, and then we had set the trap and in your face, which were new, and then we had spread them out, hidden martyrs, and breakthrough, which were existing schemes. So let's move right on to who chose what. So I guess I'll go first. Which schemes will Jesse choose? So 33, I'm sorry, the top ones were breakthrough with 77.78% of the total responses, followed by hidden martyrs with about 56% of the responses. Then we had set the trap with 33%, spread them out with 22%, and in your face with 11%. So I apparently, not really wanting to do the stuff that was the strongest for Zipp, those being spread them out and breakthrough, decided that I just wanted to try the new stuff. So I actually chose in your face and set the trap.
And in retrospect, spread them out would have definitely been a bad scheme for you.
Yes, spread them out would have been terrible, especially with the way that the game played out. Yep. I don't think I would have even scored a single point on it.
Probably not.
Probably not. I think taking breakthrough probably would have been a safe bet. I would certainly have gotten a point. It's possible I could have gotten 2 points, but I think really I probably only would have ended up with 1.
Yeah, when you ran first mate way up in the corner like that, I thought for sure you had taken a breakthrough. Yeah, and I was going to kind of just let you have that point because there wasn't much way of stopping him. So
right. And then as far as the other two, I thought that in your face would be pretty easy. Knowing that you were playing Ulix, and before we, I'll just kind of spoil it a little bit. You went with Ulix 2, which, according to the survey, pretty much everybody said you would take. We had about 90% of survey participants say that Porkbelly Protector would be the chosen title for you.
They know me so well.
They do. And then just getting right into the second part of that question, about 78% of respondents said that I would take the original Captain Zipp, and about 22% said I would take Dread Pirate. I did indeed go with regular old original Captain Zipp. So, I thought that In Your Face was going to be fairly easy, just because I expected either Ulix 1 or Ulix 2 to be played fairly center and to have some supporting models around him. So I thought it was going to be pretty easy to score the first point, and I was fairly confident that I'd be able to score the second point, especially where I had intended to kind of run Mancha up a flank, clear schemers, and then swing his way down into the deployment zone. That's kind of what ended up happening, but we'll get into that when we do the breakdown of the game. As far as set the trap, I thought it was going to be pretty easy. And it was anything but. So where we said spread them out would be hard, set the trap is basically like spread them out, but even harder. So yeah, it didn't go too well for me.
And I missed my opportunity to score the first point. I got that.
I never really had an opportunity to score the first point. And by the time it was the end of game, I didn't have enough models on the table that I could knock your only remaining set the trap target down to half health.
Well, and I think that's the problem is that Cursed Objects is a very killy scheme. Right. So, probably was not. And looking like you had, 7 models to start?
Yeah.
So, in retrospect, and I guess spoiler alert, I also took Set the Trap and I took Breakthrough.
There you go.
I don't know what
according to the
was
survey, Breakthrough is actually the second lowest. The majority of folks thought you were going to take Hidden Martyrs,
I should have.
followed by Spread Them Out, and then it went down to In Your Face, then Breakthrough, and then Set the Trap.
I would have probably gotten full points if I'd have taken In Your Face, just because I killed so many things around Zipp.
Yeah.
But I wanted to try Set the Trap. I don't know why. That was just a dumb idea. Should not have tried it. It's new schemes.
Yeah.
That's my excuse. And I'm bad at the game. That's also my excuse.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I felt it was I don't think there were any unviable schemes in the scheme pool. Hidden Martyrs was absolutely doable. Breakthrough was doable. In Your Face was doable. Set the Trap was hard, but like I said, I had one opportunity about turn 4 to score it, the first point of it, and I forgot about 12 cups and went with the wrong play.
Yeah. So I guess that said, let's go into the cruise that we took. So we've
absolutely.
Already kind of given away the answer to 2 of the other questions in the survey. But Maeve, why don't you just run down the crew that you took for the fine folks in the audience?
I took the Porkbelly Protector, as we've already said, and of course, Penelope. I took Old Major, Bo Peep, Gracie, 2 Swine Cursed, and a Hog Whisperer. I know people will probably be shocked that there's no sow in that list, and no Piglet Fodder, but I like the list. I think it played really, really well.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot. And, one of the things I had mentioned in the course of the game was I've always kind of looked down on Hog Whisperers playing a lot. I've played quite a lot of Ulix 1, but I haven't really tried Ulix 2. And I'd tried them a few times, but I find it difficult to fit them into Ulix 1. That said, now that Swine Cursed have been adjusted, that's actually going to change the way that I hire my Ulix 1 and Ulix 2 crews. And boy, oh boy, are Hog Whisperers ever real good with Swine Cursed. Holy smokes.
Right. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Swine Cursed are disgusting in an Ulix crew now.
Oh, yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, the heads and tails are what they can do in a long crew.
Yeah, between being fast, between, the typical stuff, fast and glowy, they also have positives to damage flips and built-in rams, so they're just about impossible to take down unless you absolutely focus them. And they're hitting they're just hitting like trucks the whole time.
Yeah, and with the Hog Whisperers giving them the +1 melee range to bring them up from a paltry 0, plus the fact that the Hog Whisperers want to charge the Swine Cursed, poke them with their stick, and make them take a damage and then take an action.
Yep.
Kind of like an Obey without a TN. It's pretty slick.
Yep.
It's also damaging the Swine Cursed and giving them fast and glowy at the same time. So it's incredibly efficient. Great models.
And if you leave Ulix around the Hog Whisperer, the Hog Whisperer can poke Ulix and get him to take another shot, which is fantastic.
Yeah, overall I liked the crew a lot. I don't feel like you missed not having the Sow, and I know that's most people kind of consider her to be stapled to a Ulix 2 crew. You didn't even grow anything all game, and I don't think you needed to.
Didn't need to. Well, and Ulix went off by himself to do a little, and to do the damage that he did during the turn. But yeah, I think it's kind of a trap to try to get the early, like the early spam. His bonus action is really, really good to put pigs in position. That's the best thing about it. If you've got a swine cursed out of position and you ping them with bacon beeline and suddenly they're 7 inches up the board, that's huge. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it has a bonus action that needs a 4.
Yeah.
To be able to push a swine cursed, what do they move, 5 or 6? I can't even remember.
They move 5.
Yeah, I mean, to push them 7 inches, ignoring models, and if you move over enemy models, dealing damage to them,
and giving them burning because of Ulix is so good.
Yeah, it's wild,
super efficient.
So great crew. I think when I do end up trying Porkbelly Protector, I would not be at all surprised if I end up trying the same crew, just because I've seen it played and I kind of see some of the synergies there, or something very, very close to it. I like the crew a lot.
I think if I had any like changes I would do to it, and I'm not really sure how I would pull it off, like where I would pull points away. Especially if your opponent has a really punchy crew. Ghillie suit might be alright. Disguise might be a good one on Ulix, just because defense 4 is terrible.
Which we found out this game, and we'll get to that. Yeah, I think that those would be reasonable choices. I feel like going down to, because I think you had 5 stones. Going down to 3 might be a little sketch.
Yeah. I'd have to tweak it a little bit. But
yeah. So anyway, we'll go over my crew. So as I said, I took Captain Zipp, the OG. He had the obligatory 12 cups of coffee that he never leaves home without. Earl, of course. This game I took Mancha Roja and the first mate. Usually I take one or the other. This is one of the rare times I took both. I also took an Iron Skeeter with the 2 gremlins and a ghillie suit upgrade to give it disguise, to make it a little bit more durable, and then also to give it the +1 size that it needs to be able to fly with me on Manja. I also took Bo Fishbacher. This was the first time that I have ever played Bo, so I was really excited to see what kind of nonsense I could do with him, especially because we had a couple of the map that we played, what I think was called Broken Streets. Had a couple of what turned out to be hazardous concealing steam clouds. I didn't know that they were hazardous until I actually looked at the map. I thought that they were just concealing, so that was a nice surprise.
But we made it so that you could turn them off by destroying, which was helpful.
Yeah, one of them was like right smack in the middle of the way that Maeve was going to have to unpack. So we decided that we would say you could destroy the pipe, and then that would get rid of the steam cloud. Just sort of a friendly decision to make a more friendly game. And then I also took Maris, mostly because I really wanted to leverage Maris to help score Set the Trap. If she had lived a little longer, I think that I probably could have scored the first point. But once she died as early as she did, I kind of knew that my goose was cooked there. And I sort of gave up on trying to score the
That's because swine cursed are superheroes.
Yes. So we'll go in a little bit into what happened during the course of the game. But before we do that, why don't we just say how the game turned out? So in terms of the survey, one of the questions was, who will emerge as the victor? And it was pretty evenly split. Maeve ended up coming ahead with 56% of the vote to my 44%. And then sort of a dovetailed question was, what will the final point differential be? So we went 0 tie, 8 to a blowout, or 1 down to a very close game with everything in between. Most folks felt that it was going to be a pretty tight game. About 78% of respondents said that the point diff was going to be 2. We had 22% of respondents saying it was going to be 3, and no votes for any of the other diff levels. So, Maeve, how did this game turn out?
Well, first of all, these people have way more confidence in me than I do. Thank you for believing in me. But it turned out to be a 5-5 tie. And it was an incredibly swingy back and forth sort of game. Like, there was definitely, like, I got this early lead. I took out Maris quickly. I took out the Skeeter quickly, and then you took out Ulix, and then it was just like this back and forth, sort of thing. And like I said, I was one activation away, smart activation away from winning it, and I screwed up my set the trap. But it was a very, very close game.
Yeah, so just to give kind of a high-level recap on the game, turn 1 was more bloody than I would have expected it to be. So I didn't really do any damage to speak of. Turn 1, I was mostly doing positioning, getting some focus up, and my big play there was that I wanted to get Zipp into position to drop some pianos across the center line and gum up Maeve's movement lanes, because there were some buildings, there were some boxes, and there were relatively small choke points, and especially with all the big models in play, I wanted to make sure that I got at least 2 pianos out turn 1 to jam her up. And I did do that. It actually slowed down. I think it probably stalled you out, potentially even for like 2 turns. It took you quite a while to get through all that.
Yeah, for sure.
On the flip side, I had the first mate and the disguised Iron Skeeter way off on one of the flanks, and Ulix decided that he was going to walk around a corner and focus shoot the Iron Skeeter, hit it for like 5. So you knocked it down to 4 wounds, and you put burning on it and the first mate. So by the time the end of turn 1 rolled around and the burning ticked, my Skeeter was at 3 wounds. So it was within relatively easy one-shot range from Ulix. I ended up getting Mancha into Ulix turn 1, and I think I hit him like once.
For like 3 damage or something
3
like that.
3 damage. Yeah. Nothing that amazing. And Zipp completely flubbed his activation turn 1, aside from dropping those pianos. He charged at besides that, so one of your Swine Cursed charged Maris and knocked her down to 1 wound. Yep. Zipp tried to go save Maris and whiffed twice on the Swine Cursed and had to use his last AP so that he could drop those pianos. I don't usually complain about hands, but my hand was I had an 8, and then I had 6s and 5s and 4s, and I did Soulstone into the Black Joker.
Well, I started out with a absolute god hand on turn 1, and that was the last good hand I had the whole game.
Yeah,
so
I had a terrible hand turn 1, a marginal hand turn 2, and then perfectly average hand turn 3. Turn 4 and 5, my luck turned around, and I had some pretty hot hands those last 2 turns, and we'll get into one of those later on. So yeah, end of turn 1, I had only successfully managed to gum up the center line and put a little bit of damage on Ulix, and you had dropped Maris to 1 and my Iron Skeeter down to 3 and put burning on a couple of models. So I was in bad shape. Turn 2. Things continued to go poorly for me until the end of the turn. I believe that turn is when Ulix shot the Iron Skeeter again, killed it, blew it up, and splashed more damage and burning onto the first mate.
And tried to run away, but unfortunately he did not. So, and then I think, because you didn't activate them immediately, or you didn't activate Mancha immediately, I think you went for Zipp. He failed once again to kill the Swine Cursed.
Didn't even hit it.
What's that?
Didn't even hit it.
Yeah. And the Swine Cursed just turned around and punched the shit out of Maris.
Yep.
And died for his efforts, but
it was great.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
It was great. Zipp, actually, I think I hit the Swine Cursed one time, missed the other time. No, I didn't even hit it at all because I couldn't move it out of position. So he missed twice, put up Boring Conversation, and dropped more pianos. It was great.
And Heroic Intervention was the action of the game. It was the MVP of the game. So good.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of turn, Bo was down to like 3 hit points left. Earl was down to like 2 hit points left. It was not looking good by the end of the turn, but you did gum up my other Swine Curse and Gracie, and I failed every single the race is on with Bo Peep that I tried. So that was
Black Jokered it. First activation of first turn.
Yeah.
It was great.
So yeah, turn 2 was pretty good for me. Ulix did die, but
he died turn 3.
Turn 3, yeah, he died.
Yeah, turn 3. I ended up leaning towards the end of the turn. I ended up laying into him pretty hard with both Mancha and First Mate.
Yeah,
and I got some pretty lucky hits. I think Mancha hit for like 3, then 4, and then First Mate hit for like 4, then 4, or something like that. I ended up knocking him down to 3 wounds going into turn 3.
Yeah,
and, it was at that point. Yeah, it was pretty bad at that point, especially knowing that Mancha was a min 3, Maeve was out of stones, and I had a stat 6 model attacking a stat 4 defense model. As long as I won initiative, I knew that Ulix was going to die. And that's what happened.
They can do about it.
Yep, that's what happened. So turn 3, I won initiative, killed Ulix with 1 hit from Mancha, and then Mancha charged Bo Peep, who was just around the corner,
and
her. 2-shotted her.
Yep. Yeah, no stones on Bo Peep is bad.
Yeah.
It is real bad. She does not hold up to punchiness. But really for you, the MVP of the game was Boring Conversation, which
oh my God,
is great. Like that's just perfect for this podcast. But yeah. Boring Conversation just ate my hand alive, slowed me down quite a bit. Like Swine Curse being a 4 willpower was probably their only weakness in this game, because Boring Convo just really combined with my really terrible hands. Like at one point, I think I had a 1, a 2, and 2 4s in my hand, and I'm like, heart of the cards, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, by the time turn 3 rolled around, Zipp kind of rallied a little bit, and he started actually doing some work for the rest of the game. His Boring Conversation was keeping like 3 or 4 of your models in its aura for the remainder of the game for the most part.
Yeah.
He was actually hitting with his attacks. He was dropping pianos in pretty good spots. And then his 12 cups of coffee, man, oh man, does Gracie hate that upgrade.
And I forgot that it was even on him. I don't know why, because you never play Zipp without 12 cups. But so yeah, I missed the set the trap, like we said. Actually, what happened is turn 3, I was like, oh, I have to score this stupid ski. And then, I also had to be really careful about who I killed, because I didn't want to kill too many things and not be able to score cursed objects. So Earl got to live for another turn.
Yeah. That was one thing that we'll talk about this more when we do the recap, but that cursed objects, man, that is a very interesting strategy, because there were definitely times that you could have killed 2 or even 3 models a turn, but you couldn't afford to do it because you wouldn't be able to score the rest of your strategy points.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I was really only in that position like one time, and it was towards the end of the game. But I mean, that it really pumps the brakes on. Like, it's interesting because it's a strategy that you need to be aggressive to score. But if you're too aggressive, you can work yourself into a corner where you can't score all your points. It's a very interesting balance. I think I'm going to like it quite a lot, but we'll get to that.
And then at the end of the game, turn 5, really I had set up to get breakthrough. I had set up to get the final point of set the trap, and Zipp flew up and knocked out a couple of my scheme markers with 12 cups with marked territory. So you stopped me from getting my second breakthrough, but Gracie ran up and got to set the trap, and you got the second point of the not set the trap. What was the other? In your face, right?
Yes, I got the end of game point within your
by
face
running Mancha into my deployment.
By running
zone.
Mancha into your deployment zone. Yes.
So we ended up tying. It was a great game. Honestly, I've been struggling with Malifaux for couple months now, like so many of the title matches just do not feel very fun to play against. So I've been struggling a little bit. So this game really I enjoyed playing it. We had a blast just going back and forth. It was frustrating. If you go listen to the stream, I was definitely feeling salty. There was one particular interaction where
here we go.
First mate went to attack the swine curse, and I was like, all right, fine. Threw down my red joker, and I told Jesse, I said, I know you have the red joker. I know you do. This happens to me all the time. And this guy drew it out. He drew it out, made me, sweat a little bit, and then dropped his red joker out. But you didn't manage to kill the swine curse.
No, I didn't.
Even with the red joker.
I ended up sinking a red joker and might have even been 2 severes.
You probably sunk 5 or 6.
I knocked it down to 1 wound. I couldn't kill it.
Yeah. You probably sunk 5 or 6 actions with the first mate into that swine curse and just could not kill him.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As
I recall, I think during first mate's activation, I used 2 soul stones and 3 severes, and
didn't take him out.
Couldn't kill it. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
He's a boss. Those guys are amazing. Actually, amazing. I will be honest with you. I really, truly think that I will not be hiring war pigs anymore. I think swine curse do almost as good of a job with half the cost, or not half the cost, but less cost, and they're not quite as squishy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tossed up on them. I'm gonna have to try them out. That'll be a discussion for probably another episode more in depth. I know we did a Ulix as one of our first podcast releases together, and I would be very much looking forward to doing a Ulix 2, especially where I've been playing a lot more Ulix 1 and you've been playing a lot more Ulix 2. That might be kind of fun. So we'll bury the lead on that one a little bit. But yeah, I mean, so to Maeve's point, the game was very, very swingy, but frustrating in the sense that anytime you play against Zipp, he's going to be frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's Zipp for you. I was saying before the game that, I've been so focused on dipping my toes into 10 Thunders and dipping my toes into Explorers and trying out some other Bayou Masters that I don't think I've put Zipp on the table in probably the last year. And after this game, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. He is such a blast to play. Oh, man.
I've never regretted putting Zipp on the table.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be one of the most fun. He's not as punishing as, like, your Ophelias and your Ma's and a bunch of other stuff. He does require a certain degree of finesse, but he's just so damn fun to play.
But, I have to wonder if, like, I think GG3 is going to be a very killy set, but I have to wonder if, and I guess this is just my hot take, is Zipp's denial compared with this relative killiness of his, like, he's got some pretty beefy boys in his keyword. I wonder if that denial is going to make him a little more viable than he was in GG2. Because the scheme marker schemes are really hard to pull off, I think.
Yep.
So he's going to add an extra layer of that, which is going to force you into killy stuff. And honestly, I think he can mitigate that pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, if your crew doesn't have a way to deal with the 2-inch engage and the 12 cups aura and the pianos and the boring conversation all stacked on top of each other, I mean, he can pretty reliably lock down, 2 or maybe even 3 models by himself.
Yeah.
I've done it a bunch of times. So that'll really pump the brakes on your opponent's ability to kill your key models. And he has enough speed and denial that, I mean, just, the very last turn, I mean, he killed a model and then he flew 16 inches and picked up 2 scheme markers with a bonus action.
Yeah.
A 4 or 3-inch pulse or 4-inch pulse or whatever it was. So, I mean, he's he's got all the tools, and a lot of the Zipp crews that I play are very killy. I mean, I one of my favorite ways to play him is what I'd call the Zipp Brute Squad, which is like, Mancha, Gracie, or the first mate, Johann, and then using, I know I'm one of those weirdos that plays Johann. Johann always does work for me, people. Always. But just absolutely punishing your opponent with, min 3 attacks and highly mobile models and being able to kidnap stuff with Zipp. Like, it's just, it's a deceptively aggressive crew. And I really do think he's going to do quite well in this Gaining Grounds.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's a bad choice.
No, not at all. So before we get into our thoughts on the new strat that we played and the new schemes we played, a lot of it we've kind of talked about already, but what about you? How do you think Ulix fares in Gaining Grounds 3?
I think overall he can do all of the strategies, and he's pretty good at doing all the schemes. I think you could easily do piglet spam and spread them out. They could do set the trap really easy, just running in and dying. I think Ulix 1 on the majority might be a little better than Ulix 2, but I think Ulix 2 has his place. I think once you figure out the play style for Ulix 2, he's going to be a lot of fun to play. And that's what it really comes down to. Like, Ulix 1 is probably technically better. Ulix 2 is a lot of fun. Like, he plays a little bit like Nekema. Like, he either gets in there and murders things or he dies.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the 2, I find Ulix 2 to be a little bit more appealing. I think that my opinion is somewhat tainted by the fact that I've played so many Ulix 1 games and I've gotten screwed so many games because he is so card and TN intensive.
Yeah.
There's a little bit less of that in Ulix 2, so that could just be what is most appealing to me.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I think Ulix 1 is going to be better for doing, like, piglet spam stuff.
Sure.
And I think Ulix 2 is going to be a better, like the crew I played, very alpha strikey, get in and punch the crap out of things and take down key models on turn 1 to kind of give you a little bit of leverage. That being said, titles did bring a little bit of, like, frustration for Ulix, like, Dita 2 just rolls over him by turning off healing. He still suffers. Hazardous is still bad for him. He got a little bit of help with severe boards because you can bring the boar, which is a great model too. I find him hard to fit in sometimes, but he's a solid model. Maybe good in GG3 because if he can spam out underbrush markers, he can make your guys a little more durable. But yeah, I think Ulix 1 is going to be fun to play. I don't know that he'll ever be like, this is the top pick, but if you like Ulix, you can play him, and I don't think it'll hurt you any.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I'm sure there's going to be so many conversations had about
I mean, it's all hot take lane at
action
this point.
tier lists and all that kind of thing. But yeah, for sure. So speaking of GG3, specifically on the strategy, so Cursed Objects, what did you think of it?
I thought it was more fun than I originally looked at it to be. Partially because I read it wrong and thought that it was like a typical Malifaux where you had to kill more things and get more curse tokens each turn. When I realized it was just once per turn, that made it much easier. I did like the throw the curse tokens onto your opponent's aspect of it. I think it's pretty fun, like, to knock something down pretty low and then throw a curse token on it and punch it.
Yeah, and you did the opposite of that in our game, too. There was one point where First Mate had, 3 or 4 wounds on him, and you had a Swine Cursed with 1 or 2 wounds so that I could one-shot it no matter what. But you got to activate first with the Swine Cursed, and you didn't have the hand to support trying to kill first mate, especially with butterfly jump taken into consideration. So you just threw your curse token onto me and then ran away.
I also needed him alive trying to score set the trap.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if the first mate weren't the first mate and had a leap, I don't score that point. Like, you put your token on me and walk out of engagement range, I have to be able to get close to you, interact, and then kill you.
Yep.
So that requires 3 AP, and I mean, the first mate can do it, but not everything can.
Yeah.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought that was a really cool aspect of it. I'll be interested to see like how it evolves in different crews. And I liked that it is a killy strat, but it's a selectively killy strat. I think those are always good, where you have to kind of control. You can't just run in and murder the world, because if you do that, you're not going to be able to score points.
Yeah, it's very cool because, you know, like I said before, it's a killy strat, but you have to meter it out. And I really like the ability to pass the curse tokens off for denial, or to help you score on a model that maybe doesn't have a curse token on it. It's my hot take is that I don't really see much of a downside to this strategy, like I saw with some of the stuff in GG2. You know, symbols was always a bear. I hated playing symbols. It was because you always knew where every single strategy marker was going to get put, because there was kind of an optimal placement for everything. Every game kind of played out the same way. Tons of crews just couldn't do it. I don't think that there are very many crews that can't score this strategy. Some are going to be better than others, but it's not like there are whole keywords that are going to be basically locked out of it, like a lot of them were with symbols. Yeah.
I think really decently killy, but also very tanky crews, thinking of like Hoffman and Von Schill, or not Von Schill, Von Schill, and also like Von Stuck, I think are going to be really good in it. Things that can take a hit, but also deliver some, like, you know, pretty good.
Von Schill is going to be a monster at this strategy. I mean, hard hitting, extremely durable, and mobile. Like, you can't ask for more.
Same thing with Von Stuck. They both play kind of similar in that respect. Like,
for sure.
Just having, you know, super tanky models. Unfortunately for us Bayou players, that's, you know, we just have to hope we can murder things before you can murder us.
Hey, there's always Zipp, as we discussed.
No doubt.
But yeah, you're right. You're right.
Actually, Brew 2 and those fermented river monks are probably going to be really good at this.
Yeah, definitely. So, what about the first of the new schemes, Set the Trap? What did you think of it?
I think it's a lot more resource intensive than I wanted it to be. I don't think it was a good pick for this scheme pool, just because it doesn't mesh with the strategy really well. If you're wanting to take models out and also like have models left alive to score the point, like if you can't score it on turn 2, I think you're not going to be able to score that strategy, the first point of that strategy, which is kind of an interesting thing, because like I've noticed how asymmetrical the point scoring is on all the new strategies in this GG packet. Like, you don't do the same thing to score the second point as you do the first point. So I think that's really interesting. Like, I'm wondering if there's going to be more strategies that are like that. Like, you have to decide, well, I can't get the first point, but I can get the second point. Or I'm going to get the second point, but I'm probably not going to get the first point. And that's kind of how I felt with Set the Trap after I really looked at it. Was like, I played freaking Tetris trying to get that point. And in the end, if I had nudged Gracie with Old Major instead of, because I had the activation control. So if I had nudged Old Major and pushed Gracie out so she could drop a marker out of the cups range, because I think she would have been, I would have scored that point. But it took everything I had to get that point.
Yeah, it's definitely one that you can get kind of lost in the think tank trying to figure out how to score.
Yeah.
I do
Some
think
crews
that
will
it's
do it easy.
interesting. I do think that the end of game point is it's certainly not easy. It is very interesting though, because only being able to score it off of an enemy master or henchman, having a scheme marker near them, but then also having to have them under half.
Mhm.
It's kind of a lot of things that you have to line up to score that last point. That is incidentally the one that you scored.
Mhm.
You managed to knock Zipp down to half, and then you squeezed in that last
That
scheme
mini
marker near
corn
him.
did work.
That's right. That's right. So it, I do like it. I think that first point, unless you're a crew that really has the ability to, you don't have to flood the field with scheme markers, but you need to be able to put them out very efficiently. I think that
Mhm.
crews like that will do well with it. This seems like kind of a no-brainer for a crew like Colette, where
Mhm.
you've got a bunch of Don't Mind Me models, and you've got a bunch of ways to drop incidental scheme markers. I also see this as, in terms of Bayou, as being potentially a pretty strong scheme for Summer
Mhm.
too, and we haven't really talked about him a whole lot lately. But he's got a lot of drop it on his card. He has means to drop enemy. He has means to drop scheme markers all over the board, right
Yep.
next to enemy models.
Yeah,
So
enemy models cheating drop scheme markers,
yeah,
which is I agree.
it
I'm not
seems like
super big on
almost a
Big Hat at the
guaranteed
moment.
2 points for him.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good one.
I think
I'm
you have to be
interested to see
careful
where
what
Summer turns out.
strategy you set it up with, because I don't think in cursed objects you generally want to keep the leader alive, because
Yeah.
you're probably playing I imagine you'll probably be playing up against a very killy leader. So that second point is going to be hard because you probably want to kill that guy.
Yeah.
If you're leaving him alive, you're probably losing.
Yeah.
But
So cool scheme. I do like it. From both of us, it probably wasn't a smart pick in this particular pool.
very situational.
Right. Right. Especially if you're not a crew that's built towards it.
Right.
So how about the other one that we used, which was In Your Face? I know you didn't take it, but I did. So what do you think of it?
I think I should have taken it.
Yeah.
If I'd have taken it, I would have scored both points.
Yeah, you would have. For sure.
I think I think it's not. I think in general, you're going to have models around either your master or your opponent's master.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a pretty easy one to score that first point. I think if you score the first point early, you're probably going to be disappointed unless you have multiple models with the same highest stat rate or highest points rate. Because if you score it on turn 2, your opponent is absolutely going to go for the model that will score your endpoint.
Right. And it's not like, Let Them Bleed, where the model that you use changes throughout the course of the game, depending on, what dies and stuff. You only get to score it if the most expensive model you hired that game is in your opponent's deployment zone. So if you reveal it early, to Maeve's point, your opponent has, basically the whole game to respond and try and kill that one model. And if they do, you're dead. This is one where it might even be one, depending on the opposing master, that you intentionally don't reveal until turn 3 or even turn 4 if you think you can risk it.
Yep.
Turn 3 seems to be kind of the ideal time to me to reveal this one. Once you get turn 4, there's just usually not enough models on the table, or you can't guarantee that you'll have enough agency.
Yeah. You'll
sort
have
of
to
like
be very
claim jump,
careful.
where just because you can score claim jump turn 2 or vendetta or what have you doesn't mean you should. And this is kind of in the same ballpark.
Well, and the other thing too is if you get to turn 4 and you haven't flipped over the second scheme, your opponent's probably going to be able to suss out what schemes you have.
Right.
So if they figure that out and spread out, then you're going to have a tougher time
That's
with
a good
it.
point.
I think crews like Nekema, who can hire 2 mature Nephilims, which are pretty tough to take down and same points, is pretty solid. It was a good take for you because you had two. Well, no, first mate is first mate the same points as
No,
me?
he's
But
9.
Mancha
My
was
only
also
choice was Mancha.
yeah, but Mancha's
Yeah.
also really hard to take down. Like
Yeah, that's kind of what I was banking on. Was
Yeah.
I was going to use him to, like I said with my original plan, was I was going to use him to clear a flank,
mhm,
do some work in the center, and then charge his way back to the deployment zone last turn,
which is what he did.
which is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he did that. That plan worked perfectly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this scheme. I think it's really cool. Once again, I don't think it's I might be wrong, but I don't think it's an auto pick. I think it's an auto pick for certain crews. But I don't think every crew is going to take it.
Yeah, it's this is a really interesting one because it is going to be highly dependent on your opposing master and the way that you've built your crew. I mean, to be fair, I would say most masters are usually going to be floating around the center of the table or aggressively pushing into your opponent's table half. There aren't really that many of them, aside from maybe Zoraida, that tend to hang way back.
Yeah. Tony
maybe Lucius.
Tony 1 loves this scheme.
Yeah.
Bashel absolutely loves this scheme.
Uh-huh.
Levy probably enjoys this scheme.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about this one is that if your master really loves this scheme, your opponent is probably really going to love picking this scheme into you because they know that your
it's actually a good counter
mix.
scheme too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like if your opponent's playing Bashel, pretty safe bet that you're going to get a chance to score this scheme throughout the course of the game. Now he might as well, but yeah.
But that's a nice wash. You can at least hold tight on the points. So I like it. I think it's a really more intricate scheme than it looks like at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. It was one where I looked at it and it seemed very simplistic, but the way that it plays out, I think is interesting. And I really do like it a lot. So without going on a full, straight down the row analysis of every single strategy and new scheme that we have, we'll leave that for maybe peppering through future episodes. I'm interested to see what you think of the strategy spread in particular, because the strategy spread got shaken up immensely. There are literally no GG2 strategies that are still in GG3.
No, they're all brand new.
All brand new, which is pretty incredible. I don't know if you were prepared to talk about this, but kind of off the top of your head, what do you think of the strats that we have, and how do they kind of function as a cohesive packet?
I think they're if I had any criticism about them, I think there's going to be a whole lot of come to the middle and punch it out in these.
Yeah.
Because you got guard the stash that's got two markers pretty close to each other on the center line. Carve a path most of the time. You're going to get to right over the center line and then have to fight it out. Carve the path is going to be either a very close game or a snowball. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's ever going to be kind of a balance. Like it either you stall your opponent out or everybody runs to the far ends and scores it.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. It's a very interesting strategy because it's one where, I mean, it's sort of like the interacting strategy, right? Like that's the one where you need, volume of interact actions wins the day, unless your opponent is killing enough to knock out your strat runners, and then your whole plan kind of falls apart. It's not one where, I mean, I think this is sort of overall, and this is one thing I do really like about this particular Gaining Grounds packet as opposed to Gaining Grounds 2. For most of the strategies in this packet, you can't just take a strategy runner. You can't just use one model and score 4 points, like Bayou with the Lucky Emissary, or Outcast with the Midnight Stalker, or, I mean, there's a bunch of other examples throughout the game. That's actually one of the things that, I mean, people have complained about in Neverborn for a long time, is that they, don't really have a fantastic single model strategy runner. And to that end, I think Neverborn are probably going to do pretty well in GG3. I mean, they've
I
got a
don't
lot of
hate it.
durable stuff.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said I don't hate them in it, for sure.
Yeah, no, I really don't. So at any rate, I like that the way that the strategies are put together, or that you can't just put all your money on one model and score 4 points.
Yeah.
Because that's not interesting.
The only strategy I'm a little iffy on is covert operation. And part of my problem with it is having to reselect secretly new models at the end of or beginning of every turn. I think that's going to get a little messy.
Yeah, I agree.
So like, and maybe a little time consuming. I also think it's going to be pretty easy to figure out what models that they've secretly selected, in quotes, and just kind of murder that model. So, while it doesn't seem like it's a very killy scheme or strategy, I think it is. I think it's very much going to be, if they don't have any models left, they can't score any.
Yeah, it's one where I appreciate what they were going for, and I do think it could potentially play out. One thing I do get a little bit worried about from a tournament play perspective is, I mean, like, hopefully there are going to be ways that we can notate things like this in the app. Let's put it that way. So that we have a, irrefutable electronic record of what people select.
Yeah.
I have certainly run into instances in my time as a TO where maybe some notes were taken in a ambiguous way that caused some arguments and ended up having some players ejected from league play or tournaments that I've either run or been in. And this sort of opens up the door for that to happen on sort of a routine basis.
Yeah.
So my hope here is obviously, DZ, we love you. I'm not expecting you to to completely rework the app to accommodate things like this, especially with the new secret information stuff that's in the Gaining Grounds 3 packet, which I'm sure we'll kind of get to. But I think that there does need to be some sort of very clear way to notate this information. That way we don't have disagreements.
For sure, because like if you have 3 piglets, for instance, and you just write down piglet, then you could potentially like, oh yeah, I meant this piglet, not this piglet. Right. So.
Or if yours aren't clearly marked and you say piglet 3, well, I mean, which one's piglet 3? Does it have a 3 on the base? It doesn't. Okay, so which one's piglet 3? Like it.
Yeah.
In Vassal, that there is an advantage in Vassal in that you can rename models. So that does help, but it's a little squirrely. It's a little squirrely overall. And it is, to your point, maybe it could potentially be a little bit time consuming. Not that I'm expecting you're going to take 5 minutes every turn trying to figure out who your covert models are going to be. But, it's just something to look for in terms of, especially in terms of slow play. So,
yeah. So that's the only one that I'm like, maybe I need to play it more. I need to get more reps under it and see how much I like it, especially with Nova coming up. But I think overall it's pretty balanced. I'm not upset about any of it. I think I like just about all the strategies.
All the strats. Yeah, I do too. I think it's probably one of the better strat spreads that we've seen. Now, whether I'm saying that in 6 months, who knows? But at first glance, I like it quite a lot.
I'm hoping it's not solvable very easily.
Yeah. And then in terms of the new schemes, I don't want to necessarily go through every single one of them. I would say I do like the new scheme selection. Some of the schemes that were real problems in GG2, they removed, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see Research Mission go. It used to be that Research Mission was a great scheme and a very interesting one. But now that there are so many marker generating masters and models in the game, plus the ability to select strategy markers for Research Mission, it just sort of became free points for almost everybody.
Yeah.
I was happy to see it go. So,
but at the same time, load 'em up is for every crew that could do research mission. Load 'em up is probably almost as easy to do.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, 6 or more of the chosen marker types on the opponent's table half. That it is research mission-esque, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that 6 is a lot.
It is a lot.
6 is a lot, especially if your opponent knows that it's in the pool and they know that you're playing a marker that could potentially generate, or a master that could potentially generate markers. They're probably going to take some kind of marker removal. Most factions have access to that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If your opponent isn't smart and doesn't tech into it, then yeah, it's probably going to be free points. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it's necessarily going to be as easy as it appears on the face. One thing that I was very interested to see go was Claim Jump. I mean, Claim Jump's been in, I think, it might be every Gaining Grounds document. I don't think it's ever not been in.
Yeah. I think that you should either have Claim Jump or Leave Your Mark.
Right.
I think that's a good balance. Like when we had GG1 had Claim Jump and Leave Your Mark, and it was just too much of a slam dunk.
That was bad.
Yeah. You were either going to score them both or you weren't.
Yeah. And I do like Leave Your Mark.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty good scheme. It's one where it's heavily telegraphed. Like, you're almost never going to drop a marker within an inch of the center point unless you're trying to go for Leave Your Mark. So once you do it, your opponent's going to know, and then they're going to have some agency as to whether or not they can defend it.
Mm-hmm.
The only concern that I have with it is it's one of those that really heavily encourages activation control. Both mid-game and end of game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of concern there that, like, crews that can generate a lot of pass tokens are probably just going to kind of get this unless your opponent intentionally jams a model right on the center point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I think it's a little bit less interesting than Claim Jump is. I know that I like it equally or certainly not better, but I don't know. We'll see. I did like Claim Jump because there was always a little bit of question of whether or not you actually had it. Your opponent had to try and suss out which model it was. It's fairly easy to get an enemy model close enough to deny it, and then the end of game point could potentially be difficult because you had to be above half wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of feel like it's a better scheme than Leave Your Mark. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think Sabotage is I think Sabotage is the dud of this GG. It wasn't good in GG0. I don't think it's good now. It's way too telegraphed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I can't remember, did Sabotage always have the not within 4 inches of the center line stipulation?
Yes.
Or is that new?
Yeah.
It did? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was always kind of a tough one, and one of the things that I didn't really like about it was the timing in which you have to notate your secret information for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to select it as a scheme before you know which deployment zone you're going to get.
Well, so that's changed now. If you read the way secret info is, you can pick the scheme, but you don't pick the secret information until the
right.
start
Oh,
of the
yeah.
game.
No, I know. It's the same way that it was before, because with Sabotage, it was always you notated your secret information at start of game because it would be impossible for you to do it beforehand.
Yeah.
But you have to select Sabotage before you know which deployment zone you're going to get. So if you pick it expecting to get 1 or 2 deployment zones and your opponent decides they're going to play sideways and there's no good targets, like you could potentially be kind of screwed.
Yep.
Which I never really loved. I do think you're right. It's probably the dud scheme unless you're playing on a table that has, a gigantic piece of terrain that's just far enough away from the center line. And then it's probably kind of a gimme.
And I think Secret Meetup is going to be the scheme that a bunch of people try to make work. And it's going to, be a 50%er. Sometimes it'll work out perfectly. Other times your opponent will see it coming and just stop it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the new bait and switch to a certain degree. Like,
Yeah.
it requires a lot of things to kind of fall into place, and it's one of those that your opponent has a lot of agency in denying, even just kind of randomly. Like, they can just kind of accidentally deny it, like they've always been able to deny things like Vendetta.
Yep.
As far as the stuff that stayed in, I mean, I do think that I would be disappointed if we didn't see a Gaining Grounds with Assassinate. I do feel like it's kind of an important scheme to have, because it does force you to really take it into consideration when you're hiring your crew.
Mm-hmm.
Vendetta is fine. I think Breakthrough is a good scheme. Martyrs has always been pretty good. I don't love Counter Release. Spread Them Out was a good one to pick. Yeah, I would say as far as the schemes that stayed in, the only one that I'm not super in love with is Catch and Release. I think that's just because I've had really spotty luck with it.
Yeah, it's another one of those. You either are going to nail it or not. It's a very activation control heavy.
Yeah.
And it's also another one of those you don't want to score too early.
Yeah.
For sure. But the interesting thing is the new replace caveats.
Do tell. Maybe you can fill the folks in.
Okay, so Hidden Martyrs, Vendetta, and I think Public. Almost everything that has you choose a model specifically now says that the model cannot be replaced in order to score that scheme. So that's going to bring down... I mean, it does kind of hurt Ulix a little bit, but I don't think Ulix was good at those schemes anyway. So I think that's fine. But it is going to take a little real estate off of Corify, which I'm not sad about. God, I hate those models. Also things like Rat Kings. There's several models that are, kind of powerful because of that replace that, it's not a bad thing, honestly.
No.
Like replace, I think is a very strong, was probably second to summons. And, they've been I kind of feel like they've been a little too harsh to summons, but I'm a summer player. So, I'll just continue to eat that salt as long as I can. But I feel like this is a good spot for replace because they've been trying to fix replace rules in the rule book, but I think fixing the way replace works with schemes is better.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is kind of backtracking a little bit, and we didn't really talk about it about what happened during the course of our game. But one quick thing that I'd say on summoners is I'm pretty happy that there is a strategy, specifically Cursed Objects, that disincentivizes you from summoning and is actively a bad strategy
Guard
for
the
a lot of
stashes
summoners
too,
in the
though.
game. Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there's a cute thing about that though, because like I was thinking about it with Sommer in particular, Sommer being able to summon Bayou Gremlins that are insignificant that can still occasionally punch up. If they kill a model that has a curse token, you still get the point for the curse token, but your opponent can't put curse tokens on the Bayou Gremlins.
Right, and if you summon an insignificant model, which there aren't, I mean, there are certainly a number of masters and models that summon insignificant models, but Sommer is kind of the poster child for that.
Yeah.
Usually it's a bad thing, but in Cursed Objects, it's actually kind of a good thing because they
don't
get a curse token and they can still score you the scheme.
Yeah, and you scored your last point of Cursed Object because my summoned piglet got killed.
Token. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, overall, I think first pass, I'm pretty happy with this Gaining Grounds. I really don't have any big gripes with it. A lot of it's just sort of smaller, nitpicky ones.
Yeah.
I think that the strategies in particular are in a much better place than Gaining Grounds 2 turned out to be. It's funny because when GG2 first rolled around, I looked at the strategy mix and my first reaction was, this is the best mix of strategies that I've ever seen in a Gaining Grounds. This is fantastic. But then as the season progressed, it became very obvious that they were actually kind of stale. And I feel like Weird and the playtesters have done a great job at making sure that this particular set of strategies is a little bit more dynamic. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I don't see any. Like I said, I think it's going to be fairly killy, which I think GG2 was very denial based. If you had a really good denial game, you could really slow your opponent down. I think GG3 is going to be a little more smash in the middle and see what happens. And I'm kind of okay with that as a change of pace.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess kind of closing thoughts. We already gave our overalls on GG3. I'm interested to hear, now that we've seen this new tournament packet, are there a particular set of masters or a faction that you feel like you're going to focus on going into GG3?
I can never focus
on
a faction. I am currently about 50-50 on whether I'm taking Bayou or Neverborn. I think if I really want to try to win it, I will probably take Neverborn. Like we said, I think they're really strong. My problem with Bayou is that the stuff that I like is not the quote-unquote best. I'm not a big... I just don't enjoy playing Affiliate all that much. And Ma is okay. I would rather play Zipp, play...
Sure.
Or play Brew 2, which I think Brew 2 is strong too. I really like Brew 2. But I think Neverborn's got some just solid play right now. Nekema, sure. I think Nephilim keyword is going to be really solid, I think, in this packet. So I think that'll be fun to play. I played Yuri 2 the other day. He's really interesting. Dreamer 2 is going to be pretty good in certain scheme pools. Zoraida's always a good choice.
Yeah.
Zoraida's just going to do Zoraida things.
I think Zoraida in this particular GG season is going to be a ball breaker.
She is. And I still think she has a very minuscule but noticeable advantage in Neverborn over Bayou. Just for having some absolutely solid punchers.
Yeah, and especially now that Bayou isn't going to be able to crutch on the emissary anymore, and she had such strong interactions with the emissary. Definitely, I think at first glance, I would say she for sure has a more solid edge in Neverborn than in Bayou at this point.
So yeah, I think it's... I'm really looking forward to seeing which of those. I've got a couple weeks kind of to make a decision on who I'm bringing. But I've got Brew 2 sitting there ready to go. And he's just absurd. He's just absurd. I think I'll probably bring Ulix if I play Bayou. I've given consideration to just playing Big Hat so that I can prove they need work. If I lose all 5 rounds, I could be like, yeah, see, I told you. But I don't know. I think Brew and Ulix will probably be the two, and Zoraida. Brew, Ulix, and Zoraida will probably be the 3 that I bring if I play Bayou.
Cool. I think I'm probably going to go back to my roots and stick to Bayou for a while, just because it's the faction I'm the most familiar with. I've been kind of messing around with a couple other factions. I actually have an entire Lynch keyword that I haven't even taken out of boxes yet or started to assemble. But I would love to get him on the table. That said, I think at least for the first couple of months, I'm going to stick to Bayou so I can get a sense of how the Gaining Grounds packet works out.
Mm-hmm.
I usually try to narrow down to 3 masters. That's sort of the most that I feel like I can comfortably wrap my head around, especially while trying to learn new titles or learn a new Gaining Grounds packet. So I think, especially after our game today, I think Zipp is definitely going to be in the pool. I just had such a blast with him. And the more I look at Zipp too, the more I think he does actually have some play. I need to get him on the table and find out, though. He's got a very different play style than Zipp 1, which is certainly very interesting.
He's good for the mirror match. I think he's really
very
good for the mirror match. If somebody is going to drop Zipp against you, he can't be he can't do up we go.
Mm-hmm.
And Captain really hurts Zipp. So
yeah, definitely.
That trigger's good. And he's got probably one of the best bonus. Zipp 2 probably has one of the best bonus actions in the game.
Oh yeah, it's bananas. Zoraida, I think, is definitely going to make it into the list, just because, like I said, I do think she is very strong in this particular Gaining Grounds packet. She's got most of the tools that she needs, and one thing that I really like about her is that I feel like both of her titles are very strong. Having played Mothwitch a few times, I do like the title a lot. I don't necessarily know that it's just on par with Zoraida 1, because she's just raw power.
Yeah.
But if you do play Mothwitch, I do think she has some pretty strong play.
Well, I see some absolutely fun interactions that you can do with Z2. But like every time I look at them, I'm like, well, or I could just obey things.
Right. And then for my last slot, like, I hate to just be a freaking stick in the mud and just stay with the same old stuff, but Mawtucket's probably going to win out.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I love her crew. I've played Trixie, I think, more than any other keyword in the game, and I'm just completely comfortable with them. I'm comfortable with all of the models. I feel like they can do most anything.
Mm-hmm.
So at least for the time being, I think that she's probably going to be in the list. So that's my top 3. That's going to be Zipp, Zoraida, and Mawtucket. And the reason I picked them is because I feel like all 3 of them kind of do different things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad to say that Ophelia and especially Brewmaster aren't going to make the cut for me. But such is life. One thing that does kind of bum me out about Bayou in general is I feel like, for the most part, they didn't make out that great from Malifaux Burns, in the sense that for almost every single one of the masters in the faction, I feel like there's a very clear winner on which title is better.
I agree.
That's kind of a bummer, because there are some other factions that I feel like are a little bit more balanced. If you're playing into Rezzers in particular, I feel like it's very tough to suss out which title version of any of their masters your opponent's going to play, because I feel like all of them are more or less pretty much in parity with each other in terms of power level.
I would say the only one, there's 2 titles that I feel like are fairly matched, and that's Ophelia. It's both Ophelias are still pretty solid.
There, I think Ophelia 1 still falls prey to the need of a scheme pool that supports her crew,
and I think Wong 1 and Wong 2 are fairly matched.
That's true.
Unfortunately, they're still fairly matched. Kind of,
they're like D+ type masters. Yeah, but they are fairly matched. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have played a lot of Wong and a lot of Wong 2 at this point. I'm comfortable playing either of them into almost any game, but they're not.
I think Wong 1 is a fantastic second master. I think he is. I think he will surprise the heck out of people. Mm-hmm. Being able to launch into space and drop, just do some pretty solid damage all around.
That's kind of the other thing that I feel like Bayou loses out on a little bit in the current kind of gamescape is that I don't feel like we have any truly powerhouse double master combos or second master hires. Like Zipp is always good, but I don't. Most of the time, I don't really feel like he's 16 or 17 stones, whatever he is, good.
Yeah.
He's real good with like Montucket, but
yeah, they're a
Keyword's
solid
pretty
combo.
good. So
I agree. There's no super synergies that I see
Mm-mm.
between. It's not like the slotting door 2 in
the May 2 off 2.
yeah, or yeah, the mate yeah. Oh Jesus, that list
Yeah.
can go straight to hell.
And quite frankly, I mean, aside from Zoraida, like she's good second hire pretty much all the time. Zoraida 1. But like it's I'm not complaining that Bayou's not in a good spot there. I'm more saying that I wish that the rest of the game were a little more like Bayou.
Yeah, I agree.
Where second masters weren't like some people say that explorers can't function without second masters.
I agree. I 100% agree. And then maybe there are some explorers players out there that can prove me wrong. But every time I try to make an explorers list, I'm like, I really want. I think it's just because like the rest of the models in explorers that aren't masters are like there's some superstars, and then there's just
I mean that's a conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
I on the one hand we've got Bayou where there's not really much strong incentive to hire a second master, and then you've got explorers where there is a heavy incentive to hire a second master, and then I feel like most other factions kind of lean a little bit more in that second direction than the first.
Yeah. I think the other factions are set up to where if you want to hire a second master, it's fine. It's fine. You'll do fine. If you don't hire a second master, you will also do fine.
And that's one thing I'm very interested to see, how are things going to play out in GG3 with second master hires. Obviously there are a couple of schemes that note, master or leader. There could be potentially a disadvantage to playing something with a lot of masters on the table. Next Kids plus Ivan is a absolute, or Next Kids plus Ivan 1 is a truly powerhouse list. So I don't think that any strat or scheme disadvantage is going to dissuade you from taking something that crazy.
Next Kids plus any master is actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, Next Kids plus, McCabe 2, super strong. McCabe 1, pretty strong. Ivan 1,
Cooper
Jed's 2. Like, the list goes on.
Yeah.
The list goes on. But at any rate, I think that's pretty much all that I had. I would just say, as we mentioned at the start of the episode, since we are potentially going to be streaming more stuff on YouTube, I would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like our videos, and certainly feel free to leave comments. I'd be really interested to see how people enjoy the streams, just like I'm interested to see how folks enjoy the podcast episodes so that we can kind of build and improve upon that. Keep your eyes out for more surveys. I did have kind of a fun time doing it, and I feel like there was a lot of engagement with the survey, so I'll probably continue to do so as new episodes come out. And, take a look at your local conventions. Obviously, we said we have Nova coming up. We have ArmorCon coming up in my neck of the woods. Get out of the house, play some games. And if you can't, well, there's a thriving Vassal community that you can lean on as well. But long story short, flip some cards and enjoy GG3. Anything else you wanted to share, Maeve?
I promise I will have some more episodes of my podcast coming out soon. We've had some scheduling issues trying to grab guests, and I had COVID for a couple weeks. So, also check out my YouTube and Twitch, Foxtail Games. I run a City of Mists game, and we're probably going to be doing a Masks game here soon. Just have a lot of fun playing around, playing RPGs. That's been a little spotty lately too. Everybody seems over the summer just had scheduling commitments, but we'll get back to it. It's really fun. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm excited to say that I'm going to be involved in the first RPG session that I've played in an extraordinarily long time. I've shared a little bit of this with Maeve. So this RPG session actually involves a couple of folks from the Nastygram podcast, including Josh, and I think Dan might be participating as well. We have a new buddy who's going to be joining in as the storyteller for the Delta Green session, Devin. And I got to say, I have put more time into developing this character than I ever have into any RPG character in my entire life. So I'm really looking forward to rolling some dice and playing some roles. Indeed.
I'll have to get you on the Twitch stream at some point. Maybe as a guest character, or maybe we'll play like a one shot at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm looking forward to shaking the rust off, and once I'm more comfortable, then yeah, we'll definitely make that happen. So that's pretty much it, folks. Thank you all for joining us. As always, keep your conversations boring and stay weird, folks.